Alright, so here's a Swiss straight pull bolt comparison. This right here is the Swiss 1889. This is the 96 action, also the 1911 action. The action was changed in 1896 and they just carried through all of the 1911s. They even converted the 96 rifles to 9611s. This is the K31 action, which I would say is the highest evolution of these three actions for simplicity, strength, and actually, believe it or not, cost of manufacture. The K31 actually reduced cost of manufacture drastically over these other Swiss rifles. So, you can notice this 1889 action here. The locking lugs are all the way in the rear here. That's a pretty long way away from the breech face, which is all the way up there. The reason they did this is this rifle was originally trialed as a black powder rifle. So the idea was to keep the locking lugs as far away from the powder fouling as you possibly can. This action was never used with black powder. It just was trialed with it. Upon adoption and everything, it was always smokeless, so don't believe the myth that these rifles were compressed black powder rifles. They weren't. That was just a trial deal. In fact, even before this came into production, they already were talking about moving the lugs up here. But they, for whatever reason, I mean, there was a lot of conspiracies on why they never adopted this before, but the design was already made with the locking lugs back here, so they did that. On this 96 action, or the 1911 action, the locking lugs are moved up here. They're still quite a ways from the breech face, but they're a lot closer than here. And although you think, I mean, that isn't a lot to move the locking lugs up, why is this action immensely stronger than this one? Well, the reason is this cam path right here. The recoil of the bolt has to transfer all the way through here, and this cam path is a weak spot. So this action, the bolt would actually flex before it got to the locking lugs, and so you would have some compression here, and this would act like a spring. So under bore obstructions or other problems, snow and ice getting in the bore, this could cause ruptured cases and other issues. So that's why, even though they didn't change the cartridge pressures, they moved the locking lugs up here. This just was a lot stronger action and improved the safety level of the action. These are safe if you have a clean bore and you're shooting good pressure cartridges, but this whole spring here of, well, it's not a spring, but this would act as a spring, and that would increase your headspace under heavy pressure. This action was able to be rechambered with the 1911 cartridge, the GP11, which is a significantly more powerful cartridge than this 89 cartridge. And that was just due to these locking lugs being up here and the shorter section here for compression as well. But I think most of it, honestly, was due to this cam lug being behind the locking lug, so it's not even into play for compression. But really strong action, not as strong as the K31, but a good strong action for GP11 cartridges. The K31 was an evolution not only to bring the locking lugs all the way up to the front, so you have none of this compression, but to simplify the action body and have a shorter action throw. And, well, shorter action throw, they're about the same, but the action's a lot shorter, so the barrel can be longer. The issue was when they went from the 1911, which is the 9611 action, to the K31, they wanted to go to a universal short rifle. And with the K11s, they couldn't have as long a barrel being the same size ratio as the K31. So the K31 actually has a few inch longer barrel just because you're saving up a lot of action space. So it's kind of a more efficient design. You can tell they also went to stamped steel parts. They changed the bolt knobs to aluminum rather than this was vulcanized rubber in the 89, and then I believe they used Bakelite, and they also used Bakelite replacements. But stamped steel, aluminum bolt knobs, still the same basic safety design. We'll take these apart and we'll compare some of the internals. But yeah, you have again 89, 96/11, and then the 31. And of all these rifles, they're all great rifles. If you don't reload and aren't into custom reloading, this 89 action's not for you. It's pretty much impossible to find loaded cartridges for it. But both of these can shoot standard PPU 75x55 Swiss, both the 9611 and the K31. If you have a true 96 action, it is chambered for the 89 cartridge. Although, you know, it's strong enough, the bore and everything is going to be a little bit different, as the 89's bore is a bit different, but those are unbelievably rare. You probably know if you have one of those, but a lot of people have 9611s, and you'll hear them called 9611s. A good way to tell that it's not a true 96 action is if you have a pistol grip. If you have a pistol grip, it has to either be a K31, a K11, or a 9611. The 89s and the 96s, before they were converted to the 11 action, didn't have a pistol grip. Let's take a look at the internals. So here there are the three bolts stripped. This is the 89, this is the 96/11, and this is the K31. As you can see, nothing in the K31 will fit on either of these previous actions. It was a completely new redesign. They, instead of having a bolt sleeve, they actually simplified your parts, so you have a locking sleeve in the bolt, this internal stem that nests inside of the bolt. You have your firing pin spring, your charging handle, your tail cap, and your this is your safety selector, and also it has your sear on there. These two rifles, there is a little bit interchangeable. We'll go through what is interchangeable between the 89 and the 96/11. But let's go ahead and take a look. I'll show you a few comparisons here. You can see they're all each composed of 7 components. And so it's not that the K31 actually simplified how many pieces there are. The whole main idea was nesting this stem inside your bolt sleeve rather than having a bolt sleeve that just goes up to here. So I got the K31 out of the way. Let's compare some of the 89 and the 96. Here's kind of the bolt stem. You can tell they're 2 different sizes, so they're not interchangeable. The extractors are interchangeable between the two. They're the exact same part. Another part that is interchangeable between them is this rear bolt shroud. That is interchangeable between the two. You can see the firing pin is interchangeable between the 89 and the 96/11. This part, not interchangeable. See this bolt? The handle that you charge it with, the operating rod, the lug is in a different location, so they are not interchangeable. Your bolt knobs are interchangeable. Firing pin spring, another non-interchangeable part. You possibly could turn one of these into one of these. I'm not sure why you would want to, as these are much rarer. Your bolt sleeve, obviously not interchangeable, but you can see the cam path is basically the same. It's a little bit smaller on the 96/11. The locking lugs are, of course, up front. That's not interchangeable. So between these, you got your firing pin, you have your extractor, and you have your rear of the bolt. This forget the name for it, I just said it a minute ago, but those are the only interchangeable parts between the 89 and the 9611. So if you're looking for replacement parts, keep that in mind. The bolt stop is also the same on the rifles that is on the receiver. The triggers are also the same, as are the front and rear bands and handguard. Between the 89 and the 96, if you have a 9611, the butt plates are the same, but if you have a true 11 or a 9611 that was put in a 1911 stock, the butt plates are different. The trigger guards are different. These trigger guards, the screw spacing not only is different, but they are also longer on the 89. The front sights are different. Of course, the rear sights are different. The screws, the action screws, are mainly all the same, although this one only uses 3, the 9611. This one uses 4. And other than that, 2 distinctly different rifles, but a few parts interchange. But you can definitely see that this was just an incremental improvement to the 89, although it was a substantial one in terms of strength. It still carried over a lot of the same design elements, and switching over from manufacturer from the 89 to the 96 was, although new receiver, because the receiver's shorter, and a new stock footprint for the receiver, and a lot of things are different. You can see where some of the same manufacturing techniques and parts from the 89 would go directly into 96 production, so it did make sense to implement that improvement, even though they were using the same cartridge, just for the increased action strength and safety margin. Just a quick thing, if you're curious, I'll compare some K31 parts, just in case you are buying parts. Obviously that's a K31. The bolt rear on the right hand side, my right hand. Although this one is longer, this K31 is longer than the 96, it is distinctly different from the 89. So you can take a look there. Obviously, bolt sleeve, not even, you would never get those mixed up, as well as the bolt stem, you would never get mixed up. The firing pin is a much shorter, pretty hard to mix up that, as well as the spring is distinctly different. Even these you're probably not going to mix up, but mainly that, a lot of people will be unsure whether that's a 89 or 96 part, but it's thinner and it's just differently shaped. So yeah, I hope that was informative to you. I kind of think it's cool comparing all 3 action types. You definitely see the evolution from the 89 to the 96/11, and then the K31 is pretty much a whole new redesign using a lot of the same fundamentals that were found in these actions. If you're looking in collecting these rifles, I really liked the 89. It's an extremely interesting rifle. Ammo is hard to come by, so keep that in mind. You're going to have to pretty much make your own. But really, really interesting rifle. 12-round magazine, that's really cool, especially for an early smokeless rifle. The 96 rifle, I think, is kind of the sweet spot for me. It's a lot more interesting than the K31. Just the action design looks a lot more old world, and I like how it functions. But if you're looking for the ultimate shooter, the K31's probably the way to go. I really like all 3, and if you're into hand loading, this one is quite fun, this 89. So anyway, I hope you found that informative. Thank you. Have a good day.